The ocean on Venaris X wasn't like Earth's. Its waves carried a metallic sheen, and when sunlight hit the surface, it fractured into prismatic patterns that danced across the research vessel's hull. Dr. Alara Kaur stood at the observation deck, watching the expedition team prepare the submersible probes. Her reflection in the window showed a woman whose once vibrant features had been hardened by years of military service and academic scrutiny. The small scar above her right eyebrow twitched slightly as she frowned. "Dr. Kaur, the preliminary scans are complete." The voice came from behind her, interrupting her thoughts. She turned to find her assistant holding a tablet. "And?" "The structure is approximately 2 kilometers beneath the surface. Material composition is unusual. Nothing in our database matches it." Alara took the tablet, scanning the readings. The energy signature emanating from the underwater anomaly was unlike anything she'd encountered in 15 years of xeno-archaeological exploration. After the resource wars over Orion shards had decimated half the colonies in this sector, finding untouched pre-civilization artifacts was increasingly rare. "Have you notified the Venaris Science Guild?" she asked, still studying the data. "Yes, they're already preparing a celebration ceremony. Senator Wren himself is expected to attend the official announcement." Alara grimaced. Senator Avel Wren's interest in archaeological discoveries extended only as far as their military applications. The Orion shards, crystalline formations containing unfathomable energy, had transformed Venaris X from a minor industrial outpost to a powerhouse in interplanetary politics. But the cost had been steep: environmental degradation, social unrest, and the emergence of rebel factions like the Roar. "Let's get moving then," she said, pocketing the tablet. "I want to establish a direct connection with whatever's down there before the politicians arrive." The submersible bay hummed with activity as technicians readied the exploration vessels. Alara checked her diving equipment, paying particular attention to the sampling kit attached to her belt. Those precious vials had saved her life more than once, allowing her to collect and analyze unknown substances in hostile environments. As the team boarded the submersibles, Alara noticed a tall, broad-shouldered man observing from the shadows. His security uniform marked him as one of the government's agents, but something about his stance suggested military training beyond standard protocol. Their eyes met briefly before he disappeared through a side door. "Who was that?" she asked one of the technicians. "New security engineer, Jax Miro, transferred from the capital last week." Alara filed the information away for later consideration. The Venaris government rarely assigned high-level security personnel to scientific expeditions unless they expected trouble, or unless they were particularly interested in the findings. The descent into the ocean depths was eerily silent. Alara's submersible led 2 others, their lights cutting through the increasingly dark water. At 500 meters, the bioluminescent marine life created a ghostly backdrop against which their vessels moved like intrusive spirits. At 1,000 meters, all natural light vanished, and the water pressure made the submersible's hull creak ominously. "We're approaching the anomaly," the pilot announced. 200 meters and closing." Alara leaned forward, peering through the reinforced viewport. The submersible's lights illuminated something massive and geometric. Impossible angles that shouldn't exist naturally, surfaces too smooth to have been crafted by primitive tools. "It's a shell," she whispered, "a giant metal shell." As they drew closer, the scale became apparent. The structure was enormous, easily large enough to house a small city. Its surface was covered in intricate patterns that resembled circuit pathways but were organic in their flow and distribution. "I'm detecting unusual energy readings," the systems operator reported. "The patterns are changing." Before Alara could respond, a tremor shook the submersible. Outside, the metal shell seemed to shift, panels sliding against one another with the fluid grace of a living organism. "Pull back," Elara commanded, but it was too late. A massive section of the shell suddenly extended outward, colliding with the neighboring submersible. Elara watched in horror as the vessel's hull crumpled, water rushing in. Emergency lights flashed as her own submersible was caught in the turbulence. "Mayday, Mayday, this is Research Submersible 1. We're experiencing severe—" The impact threw Elara against the control panel. Pain exploded in her head as something sharp cut into her temple. The last thing she saw before losing consciousness was the viewport cracking, water beginning to spray into the cabin, and beyond it, a pulsing blue light emanating from the heart of the now awakened metal giant. Her submersible tumbled deeper, dragged by currents generated by the moving structure. As darkness claimed her, Elara's body slid toward the rear of the cabin, where the emergency storage compartment housed several Orion shard samples, artifacts that now responded to the proximity of their ancient creator. When Elara regained consciousness, she found herself in a stark white room that smelled of antiseptic and metal. Her head throbbed, and when she touched her temple, she felt the rough texture of emergency medical sealant. "You shouldn't move yet, Dr. Kaur." A woman in a medical uniform approached. "You suffered a concussion and significant blood loss." "The expedition." Elara's voice came out as a rasp. "The other submersibles?" The medic's expression tightened. "I'm not authorized to discuss that. Senator Wren has placed this entire facility under isolation protocol." Elara pushed herself to a sitting position despite the wave of nausea that accompanied the movement. "Where am I?" "Research Outpost 17. It was the closest facility to your retrieval point." Memory fragments began to coalesce in Elara's mind. The metal shell, the sudden movement, the blue light. She swung her legs over the edge of the bed, ignoring the medic's protests. "I need to see the data from the expedition, now." "Dr. Kaur, I must insist." "Either you take me to the command center, or I find my own way there." Elara interrupted. "Your choice?" Perhaps it was the military authority that still resonated in Elara's voice. But the medic relented, helping her into a wheelchair. They traveled through sterile corridors that hummed with the sound of advanced filtration systems, a necessary precaution in a facility handling potentially hazardous extraterrestrial materials. The command center was a hive of activity. Screens displayed various angles of the underwater structure, which now pulsed with regular intervals of blue light. Scientists and military personnel moved with the controlled urgency that typically followed major discoveries or disasters. "Dr. Kaur," a deep voice cut through the noise. Elara turned to find Senator Aval Wren approaching, his imposing figure clad in the formal attire of Venaris high government. His silver hair and immaculately trimmed beard framed features that might have been handsome if not for the coldness in his eyes. "Senator," she acknowledged, "what happened to my team?" "Tragic accident," he replied, too quickly. "The structure's unexpected movement caused a pressure wave. Only your submersible was recovered." Elara studied his face, looking for signs of deception. "And the structure itself?" Wren gestured to the main screen. "Active, more active than anything we've encountered before. It's emitting energy signatures similar to Orion shards, but amplified 1,000-fold. His voice dropped to a near whisper. "Imagine the possibilities, Doctor. If we can harness that power—" "We don't even know what it is," Elara objected. "It could be dangerous. It's already cost lives." "Progress always has a price," Wren dismissed. "Your samples were recovered from your submersible. They're being analyzed in Lab 3. I expect you to lead that analysis once medical clears you." Before Elara could argue further, an alarm blared. One of the technicians called out, "Energy spike from the structure. It's transmitting something." The main screen flickered, then displayed a series of symbols, geometric shapes arranged in patterns that seemed almost linguistic. It's trying to communicate, Alara breathed. Or it's preparing to attack, Wren countered. Security Protocol Alpha in effect immediately. Dr. Core, you have 24 hours to determine the nature of these transmissions. After that, I'm authorizing defensive measures. As Wren strode away, Alara noticed Jax Miro, the security engineer she'd spotted earlier, watching from a console near the main entrance. His expression was unreadable, but something in his posture suggested tension beyond the current crisis. Once cleared by medical, Alara established herself in Lab 3, where her recovered Orion shard samples were stored. The samples, no larger than pebbles, glowed with inner light, responding to the energy pulses from the underwater structure. It's like they recognize it, she murmured to herself, observing how the crystal's illumination synchronized with the distant giant's pulses. Alara worked through the night, analyzing the communication patterns and comparing them to the structure of the Orion shards themselves. By dawn, she had developed a tentative translation matrix, not enough to understand complete messages, but sufficient to recognize basic concepts. As she worked, the door to the lab slid open. Jax Miro entered, carrying a data pad. "Security inspection," he stated flatly, but his eyes conveyed a different message. Alara maintained her composure. Of course. Jax moved systematically through the lab, scanning equipment with his device. When he reached Alara's workstation, he leaned in close, ostensibly examining her analysis screen. "The roar has infiltrated this facility," he whispered, so quietly that Alara barely caught the words. "They believe the structure is alive, a remnant of the civilization that created the Orion shards. Wren plans to weaponize it." Alara kept her expression neutral. "Your scan is disrupting my equipment calibration," she said aloud. Then, in an equally soft whisper, "Why tell me this?" "Because you're the only one with the knowledge to communicate with it, and because your file shows you opposed military applications of previous discoveries." He straightened, continuing his scan. "Check your private terminal in 1 hour." After Jax left, Alara returned to her analysis with renewed focus. The patterns were becoming clearer now, not just communication, but expressions of something akin to pain. The structure, whatever it was, had been dormant for millennia until disturbed by their exploration, and now it was awakening, confused and possibly afraid. An hour later, Alara accessed her private terminal to find a secured file containing classified military data on Orion shard weapons development. According to the documents, Wren's science division had already developed methods to destabilize the crystals, creating explosives powerful enough to shatter small moons. The underwater structure, if harvested, could provide enough material for weapons that would shift the balance of power across the entire sector. But there was something else in the data, evidence that the Orion shards weren't merely energy sources, but memory storage devices, containing the collective knowledge of an ancient civilization, a civilization that had been destroyed in a cataclysm of their own making. As this realization sank in, Alara's terminal displayed a new message. "The giant sleeps no more. Will you listen to its story, or help them tear it apart?" The message vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving Alara with a decision that would define not just her career, but potentially the fate of Venaris X itself. Over the next few days, Alara established a rudimentary communication channel with the underwater structure, or rather, with the artificial intelligence that had awakened within it. The AI was ancient, its consciousness fragmented after eons of dormancy, but its message became increasingly clear. It was a guardian, a keeper of memories from a civilization that had flourished and then destroyed itself through the misuse of the very energy contained in the Orion shards. They were called the Archivists, Alara explained to Jax during one of their clandestine meetings in the facility's maintenance tunnels. They built the structure, this guardian, to protect what remained of their knowledge after they realized their mistake. What mistake? Jax asked, his usually stern features softened by curiosity. They weaponized the Orion shards, created something they couldn't control. Alara's voice was heavy with the implications. Sound familiar? Jax's expression darkened. Ren has accelerated the weapons program. They've already extracted components from the outer layer of the structure. That's why it's becoming more agitated, Alara realized. It perceives the extraction as an attack. The Roar is planning to intervene, Jax revealed. They have operatives throughout the facility, ready to sabotage the extraction equipment. Alara studied him. And which side are you on? Security Engineer Miro. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. I'm on the side that doesn't repeat the mistakes of extinct civilizations. Their collaboration deepened over the following weeks. Jax provided Alara with classified information and access codes, while she continued to develop her understanding of the ancient AI. They learned that the structure, which the AI referred to as the vessel, contained not just the collective knowledge of the archivists, but also a warning. The Orion shards were fragments of a world engine, designed to harness cosmic energy. When weaponized, they had created a chain reaction that devastated the archivists' home system. As Alara's communication with the AI progressed, Senator Ren grew increasingly suspicious. He assigned additional security personnel to monitor her activities and restricted her access to the main communication array. Your progress reports lack specificity. Dr. Kaur, Ren confronted her one evening as she was leaving the lab. You've established contact with the entity, but provided minimal actionable intelligence. Translation is a delicate process, Alara countered. Push too hard, and we risk misinterpreting crucial information. Or perhaps you're deliberately withholding insights that might advance our strategic position. Ren's voice was silky with menace. I've authorized a full review of your communications. Until that's complete, you're suspended from direct contact with the structure. Alara maintained a calm exterior, though her mind raced with implications. The AI responds specifically to my communication patterns now. Introducing new personnel could destabilize the relationship we've established. Then you'll provide complete documentation of your methodology to my team. Ren stepped closer, invading her personal space. Remember, Dr. Kaur, this discovery belongs to Venaris. Your role is to serve your planet's interests, not to make unilateral decisions about interspecies diplomacy. That night, Alara received an urgent message from Jax. Extraction accelerated. Ren has ordered invasive core sampling. AI response unpredictable. Meet at Maintenance Junction 7B. When Alara arrived at the designated meeting point, she found not just Jax, but 3 other individuals dressed in facility uniforms, but bearing the subtle markings of the Roar, a resistance movement that had opposed government exploitation of archaeological discoveries for years. The situation has escalated, Jax explained without preamble. Ren's team is preparing to extract the AI's central processing node. They believe it's the key to controlling the Orion shard reaction. They're wrong, Alara said flatly. The node isn't a control mechanism, it's the AI's consciousness. Removing it would be murder, supplied one of the Roar operatives, a woman with intense eyes and a surgical scar running along her jawline. Worse than that, Alara corrected. It would destabilize the entire structure. The vessel contains fail-safes designed to prevent exactly this kind of exploitation. If the AI perceives an existential threat, it might trigger a self-destruct sequence using the Orion shards embedded throughout its structure. How powerful would that be? Jax asked. Alara met his gaze steadily. Planetary extinction level. The revelation hung in the air, heavy with implication. We need to evacuate the facility, the female operative decided. No, Alara countered. We need to convince the AI we're not all threats. I've built enough trust that it might listen if I can reach the direct communication array, which Wren has locked down, Jax pointed out. Then we break in. Alara's voice hardened with resolve. Tonight. The plan was simple but dangerous. Jax would use his security clearance to access the communication center while the Roar operatives created a diversion in the extraction bay. Alara would establish direct contact with the AI, attempting to prevent the catastrophic defense protocol from activating. What they didn't anticipate was Wren's own plan being initiated that same night. As Alara and Jax approached the communication center, alarms blared throughout the facility. Emergency lights bathed the corridors in pulsing red. "What's happening?" Alara demanded as Jax accessed a security terminal. His face paled as he read the alert. Wren's team has begun core extraction. They're already encountering resistance from the structure. On the terminal screen, they watched as mechanical drills penetrated the vessel's outer layers. The structure responded with pulses of energy that disabled equipment and injured personnel. But the extraction team continued, protected by shields specifically designed to withstand Orion Shard emissions. "We need to move faster," Alara urged. They reached the communication center to find it already in chaos. Technicians worked frantically at consoles as the main screen displayed rapidly changing symbols, the AI's communication becoming increasingly erratic. "It's frightened," Alara realized. "It doesn't understand why we're attacking." A security officer spotted them and reached for his weapon, but Jax moved with practiced efficiency, disabling him with a precise strike to the neck. "Do what you need to do," he told Alara. "I'll hold them off." Alara rushed to the main communication array, pushing aside a protesting technician. Her fingers flew over the controls, implementing the translation protocol she'd developed. On the screen, the chaotic symbols began to organize into more recognizable patterns. "I understand your fear," she transmitted in the AI's symbolic language. "Some of us wish to help, not harm." The response came immediately. "Danger. Extraction threatens containment. Defense protocol initiating." "No," Alara transmitted. "Defense protocol will destroy this world. There are innocent lives here. Preservation of knowledge paramount. Archivist directive clear. Prevent repetition of cataclysm." The facility shuddered as the underwater structure began to channel energy from its Orion Shard repositories. Sensors indicated rising power levels that would soon reach critical mass. "There must be another way," Alara pleaded. The archivists wanted to save knowledge to prevent destruction, not cause it. "I can help protect your knowledge without sacrificing this world." A moment of hesitation in the AI's response gave Alara hope. Then, "Alternative, transfer core consciousness to secure location, require trustworthy vessel." Before Alara could respond, the doors to the communication center burst open. Senator Wren entered, flanked by elite security forces. Jax, bloodied but still fighting, was forced to his knees. "Step away from the console, Dr. Core," Wren commanded. "Your treasonous activities end now." "You don't understand what you're doing," Alara insisted. "The extraction process has triggered a defense protocol. This entire planet is in danger." "More rebel propaganda," Wren dismissed. "The extraction proceeds exactly as planned. The core will be secured and analyzed, providing Venaris with technological superiority for generations." "It's not technology." Alara's frustration boiled over. "It's a living consciousness, the last survivor of a civilization that destroyed itself with the same power you're trying to harness." Wren approached, his expression coldly triumphant. "Even better, imagine the military applications of a weapon with its own intelligence." At that moment, the facility shook more violently. The main screen flashed with urgent warnings as the AI channeled more energy from the Orion shards. "Critical mass approaching," a technician reported, panic evident in his voice. "Energy surge detected in all Orion shard repositories." Ren's confidence faltered for the first time. "Contain it," he ordered. "We can't," the technician admitted. "The reaction is self-sustaining now." Alara turned back to the console, transmitting desperately. "Please, there are millions of innocent lives on this planet. Don't punish them for the actions of a few." The AI's response was slower this time, as if considering alternative solution required. Suggest parameters. Alara thought frantically, aware of Ren shouting orders behind her and Jax struggling against his captors. Then an idea formed. Dangerous, possibly suicidal, but potentially their only hope. "I offer myself as a temporary vessel," she transmitted. "Transfer enough of your consciousness to me to maintain core functions while we negotiate a permanent solution. Biological vessel insufficient. Would cause terminal damage to host. Not if we use the Orion shards I carry as buffers," Alara countered, thinking of the samples still secured in her lab. "Temporary connection only, just long enough to prevent the defense protocol activation." As she waited for the AI's response, Ren appeared beside her, grabbing her arm. "What are you doing?" he demanded. Alara met his gaze steadily. "Saving your world, Senator, despite your best efforts to destroy it." The screen flashed with the AI's decision. "Proposal accepted. Prepare for transfer." Wrenching free from Ren's grip, Alara rushed toward the exit. "I need to reach my lab," she shouted to Jax, who had managed to break free in the confusion. "Stop her," Ren commanded, but the facility shook again, more violently, throwing people off balance. Jax fought his way to Alara's side, and together they ran through corridors now filled with panicking personnel. Emergency evacuation announcements echoed through the facility as systems began to fail under the energy surges emanating from the underwater structure. They reached the lab to find it partially collapsed, equipment scattered across the floor. Alara frantically searched for her sample case, finding it beneath a fallen cabinet. "What's your plan?" Jax asked, helping her retrieve the case. "Direct neural interface," Alara explained, removing the Orion shard samples. "The AI can't transfer its entire consciousness, but it can send enough to suspend the defense protocol while we work on a permanent solution." "That's insane," Jax objected. "The neural load would kill you." "Maybe not," Alara countered, arranging the shards in a circle on a cleared table. "The archivists use similar techniques to commune with their AIs. The records suggest temporary connections were possible." "Records from a dead civilization don't inspire confidence," Jax muttered, but he helped her complete the arrangement. As they worked, Senator Ren appeared in the doorway, a military-grade energy weapon in his hand. "Step away from those crystals," he ordered. "They're government property. They're about to be the only thing standing between you and annihilation." Alara retorted. "The AI is channeling energy from every Orion shard on the planet. When it reaches critical mass, the resulting explosion will make our resource wars look like a children's squabble." Doubt flickered across Ren's face, but his weapon remained steady. "You expect me to believe that surrendering our greatest discovery is the only option?" "Not surrendering," Alara corrected. "Cooperating. The AI doesn't want to destroy us. It's programmed to preserve knowledge, not eradicate it, but it will defend itself if it perceives no alternative." Another violent tremor shook the facility. Overhead lights failed, plunging the lab into darkness before emergency systems activated, casting everything in a dim red glow. 90 seconds to critical mass, Jax reported, checking a handheld scanner. Ren's resolve visibly wavered. "What do you need me to do?" "Lower your weapon and let me complete this connection," Alara said. "Then evacuate the facility. Get as many people to high ground as possible in case this fails." After a moment's hesitation, Ren lowered the weapon. "If you're lying..." "She's not," Jax interrupted. 60 seconds. Alara positioned herself within the circle of Orion shards, which now pulsed in synchronization with the distant AI. She placed her hands on two of the largest fragments, feeling their energy resonate through her body. "I'm ready," she transmitted mentally, having practiced this technique during her previous communications with the AI. "Begin transfer." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Energy surged from the shards into Alara's nervous system, carrying with it fragments of the AI's consciousness, memories, directives, emotions so alien they defied categorization. Pain lanced through her mind as her brain struggled to process the influx of information. Distantly, she heard Jax shouting something, felt hands trying to pull her away from the shards, but she maintained contact, fighting through the pain to establish a coherent connection with the AI's core consciousness. "Not enemies," she projected with all her remaining mental strength. "Not like those who came before. We can learn. We can change." The pressure in her mind intensified as the AI assessed her sincerity, rifling through her memories, her motivations, her deepest fears and hopes. Alara felt her consciousness being stretched, examined, tested for deception. Then, abruptly, the pain receded. The energy flow stabilized, creating a sustainable connection between Alara's mind and the AI's vast consciousness. Defense protocols suspended, Tom the thought, no longer in symbols but in concepts Alara could understand directly. Temporary integration established. Through the connection, Alara sensed the AI diverting energy away from the critical mass buildup, redirecting it into self-repair systems that had lain dormant for millennia. The tremors subsided as the underwater structure's aggressive defense posture relaxed. When Alara opened her eyes, she found Jax kneeling beside her, concern etched on his face. Behind him, Ren watched with a mixture of fear and fascination. "It worked," Alara said, her voice strangely distant to her own ears. "The defense protocol is suspended. We have time to negotiate a permanent solution. Your nose is bleeding," Jax pointed out, "and your eyes." Alara touched her face, fingers coming away red. "Side effects of the neural load. Temporary, I think." "What happens now?" Ren asked, his earlier arrogance replaced by wary respect. Alara stood carefully, fighting a wave of dizziness. "Now we listen to what the archivists tried to tell us before their civilization collapsed. We learn from their mistakes instead of repeating them." In the days that followed, Alara maintained the neural connection with the AI, serving as a bridge between humanity and the ancient consciousness. The connection took its toll: headaches, nosebleeds, moments of dissociation as the AI's memories overlapped with her own, but she persevered, convinced that the knowledge being shared could change Venaris X's future. The extraction project was officially suspended, replaced by a collaborative research initiative. Even Senator Wren, recognizing the potential diplomatic and scientific benefits, publicly supported the new approach, though Alara suspected his cooperation stemmed more from fear of the AI's power than genuine conviction. Jax remained by Alara's side, serving as both protector and confidant. His connections with the Roar proved invaluable as they established a network of researchers dedicated to studying the archivist's legacy without exploiting it. 1 month after the crisis, Alara stood on an observation platform overlooking the ocean where the vessel lay. The structure was visible now, portions of it having risen above the surface as it reconfigured itself. No longer merely a shell, it had begun to unfold like a massive mechanical flower, revealing architectural elements that blended technology with artistic expression. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Jax joined her at the railing. "Hard to believe we almost destroyed it." "We almost destroyed ourselves," Alara corrected. The neural connection had weakened as the AI established more conventional communication channels, but she still occasionally felt echoes of its thoughts. The archivists followed the same path, militarization of technology they didn't fully understand. Their war lasted less than a day before the chain reaction consumed their home worlds. At least we got a second chance. Jax's hand covered hers on the railing, a gesture that had become increasingly common between them. Some of us did, Alara acknowledged. The Roar operatives who created the diversion that night. Did any survive? Jax's expression tightened. 2 did. They're in hiding off-planet. The 3rd... He shook his head. Alara closed her eyes briefly, acknowledging the sacrifice. When the neural connection is completely severed, I want to make a public statement. The full truth about the archivists, the vessel, everything. Ren won't like that, Jax warned. He's still trying to control the narrative, present himself as the hero who prevented catastrophe. The AI has been recording everything since it awakened, Alara revealed, including Ren's orders to extract its core regardless of consequences. That record exists now, backed up in multiple locations off-planet. Jax whistled softly. You've been busy. The AI has, Alara corrected. It's been learning from us, our politics, our media, our methods of information dissemination. It understands the concept of leverage. Their conversation was interrupted by an approaching transport vessel. Senator Ren stood on its deck, accompanied by members of the newly formed Archivist Heritage Committee, a group theoretically dedicated to ethical study of the ancient civilization, but packed with Ren's political allies. They're early, Jax noted. They're nervous, Alara countered. The AI requested this meeting specifically. It has a proposal to present. As the committee members filed onto the observation platform, Alara felt the familiar pressure in her mind that signaled the AI's focused attention. Through their connection, she understood what was coming. A proposal that would reshape Venaris X's relationship with the Orion shards and potentially with other worlds in the sector. Dr. Kor, Ren greeted her with false warmth. I trust you're prepared for today's presentation. The AI is prepared, Senator, Alara replied. I'm merely the translator. The committee members arranged themselves in a semicircle, data pads ready to record the proceedings. Alara stepped forward, closing her eyes to better focus on the connection. When she spoke again, her voice carried subtle harmonics that signaled the AI's influence on her vocal cords. The entity you know as the vessel greets the representatives of Venaris X, she began. After evaluating your civilization's development trajectory and comparing it to archivist historical records, the entity has determined that a controlled transfer of knowledge is appropriate, with safeguards to prevent repetition of the cataclysm. Murmurs ran through the committee. Ren leaned forward eagerly. What kind of knowledge transfer? Sustainable energy implementation, Alara the AI continued. The Orion shards were never intended as weapons or fuel sources. They are components of a planetary stabilization system designed to prevent tectonic catastrophes and moderate climate extremes. Impossible, one committee member objected. We've been harvesting and using the shards for decades. They're clearly energy sources. You have been triggering emergency power reserves and disrupting a balanced system, came the reply. Each shard extraction damages the network. Continued exploitation at current rates will lead to planetary instability within 17 years. Data began to flow to the committee's pads, complex equations and models demonstrating the relationship between Orion shard extraction and increasing seismic activity across Venaris X. Ren's expression darkened as he reviewed the information. If what you're saying is true, our entire energy infrastructure is built on a false premise. Correct, Alara the AI confirmed. However, the archivists developed alternative technologies that provide greater energy yield without destabilizing effects. These can be implemented using existing infrastructure with minimal economic disruption. More data flowed to the pads. technical specifications for energy systems beyond current Venaris science, but recognizably achievable with their technological base. "Why would you share this with us?" Ren asked, suspicion evident in his tone. "What do you want in return?" "Survival's," the simple answer. "The entity exists to preserve archivist knowledge and prevent repetition of their mistakes. Your civilization approaches a decision point similar to one the archivists faced. The entity proposes a symbiotic relationship, knowledge exchange for protection of the remaining vessel components and cessation of destructive extraction practices." The implications hung in the air. After a moment, one committee member asked, "And if we refuse?" Alara, the AI, turned to face the ocean, where the vessel's exposed components gleamed in the sunlight. "Then the entity will complete emergency protocols. All Orion Shard energy will be reclaimed. The vessel will return to dormancy in a more secure location, and your civilization will face resource depletion and environmental degradation without assistance." It wasn't stated as a threat, merely a logical consequence, but the message was clear. Ren stood, straightening his formal attire. "The committee will need time to evaluate this proposal and consult with appropriate governmental authorities." "Understood," Ilara, the AI, acknowledged. "Be advised that 63% of active Orion shards have already been reconnected to the network. Extraction attempts will result in immediate energy reclamation response." As the committee members retreated to their transport vessel, visibly shaken by the ultimatum, Jax moved to Alara's side. "Was that wise?" he asked quietly, backing them into a corner. Alara's voice returned to normal as the AI's direct influence receded. "It wasn't my decision. The AI analyzed thousands of political scenarios and determined this approach had the highest probability of success. And if they choose confrontation instead of cooperation?" Alara watched the transport vessel depart, carrying committee members already engaged in heated debate. "Then we'll have to find another way. The AI doesn't actually want to abandon humanity. It's learned too much about us through our connection. It's just setting boundaries." "Like any good negotiator," Jax observed with a hint of admiration. "Exactly." Alara turned away from the ocean view. "I need to rest. The connection takes more energy each time." Jax supported her as they walked toward the facility's residential section. "How much longer can you maintain it?" "Not long," Alara admitted. "A few more sessions at most, but the AI is developing alternative communication methods. Soon it won't need me as an interpreter." "And then what happens to you?" The question carried weight beyond professional concern. Alara considered it carefully before answering. "I'll have the memories, fragmented, but more knowledge of the archivists than anyone else alive, enough to help guide the integration of their technology, if Venaris chooses that path." "And if they don't?" Alara stopped walking, turning to face him directly. "Then we leave. The Roar has contacts off-planet, yes? Places where this knowledge might be better received." Surprise registered on Jax's face. "You'd abandon Venaris?" "I'd try to save what I could of the archivist legacy," Ilara corrected. "This isn't just about one planet anymore. The AI has shown me glimpses of what happened to the archivists. Entire star systems destabilized by weaponized Orion Shard technology. If there's even a chance of that happening again." Jax nodded slowly. "I understand. And yes, there are places we could go, people who would listen." 3 days later, the Venaris High Council announced its decision. After intense debate and what Alara suspected was significant behind-the-scenes maneuvering by Ren, they accepted the AI's proposal with modifications. A joint commission would oversee the transition to archivist-derived energy systems, with appropriate security measures to protect Venaris interests. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. As Alara performed what would be her final neural connection with the AI, She felt a sense of cautious optimism from the ancient consciousness. "You have altered the probability path," the AI communicated directly to her mind. Extinction scenario reduced from 87.3% to 42.9%. "Not good enough," Alara replied mentally. "We need to get that number lower." Continued guidance required. This unit proposes distributed consciousness backup. Images flowed into Alara's mind, a network of smaller AI nodes, each containing portions of the archivist's knowledge base, distributed across trusted individuals who would serve as guardians and teachers. "You want to create copies of yourself?" Alara questioned. "Not copies, fragments, each with specific knowledge domains, insurance against catastrophic failure of primary consciousness." Alara understood the strategy. If Ren or future leaders attempted to seize control of the vessel, they would obtain only a portion of its knowledge and capabilities. The complete legacy would survive through its distributed network. "I'll help identify suitable candidates," Alara agreed, starting with the Roar operatives, who risked their lives during the crisis. "Candidate Jax Miro already selected, compatibility high, await consent." That surprised Alara, though perhaps it shouldn't have. The AI had been observing their interactions, analyzing relationships, identifying potential allies. "I'll speak with him," she promised. As the neural connection began to dissolve for the final time, the AI shared one last impression, not words, but a complex emotional construct that conveyed both gratitude and resolve. Alara carried that feeling with her as she regained full consciousness, finding Jax waiting patiently nearby. "It's done," she told him, accepting his support as she stood on unsteady legs. "The direct connection is closed. From now on, the AI will communicate through conventional channels." "How does it feel?" he asked. Alara touched her temple, where the neural interface had left a small, star-shaped scar. "Quieter, but not empty. I still have the memories, the knowledge it shared." "And the plan going forward?" She met his gaze steadily. "The AI has a proposal for you, for several of us, actually a way to preserve what matters most, even if politics turn against the project." Jax's expression showed no surprise, only thoughtful consideration. "I figured something like that might be coming. What exactly does it want from me?" "To carry a fragment of its consciousness, not a full neural load like I experienced. Something more sustainable, integrated with your own thought patterns. You'd be a guardian of specific knowledge domains, able to access and implement archivist technology if needed." "And you? Will you carry a fragment too?" Alara nodded. "A different domain. The AI is distributing its knowledge across multiple carriers to ensure no single point of failure." "Clever," Jax acknowledged, "and very human thinking for a machine intelligence." "It's been learning from us." Alara smiled slightly. "Not all of it good. I'm afraid it's developed quite a cynical view of politics." "Smart machine?" Jax's hand found hers, squeezing gently. "I accept, by the way, whatever fragment it wants to entrust to me." Over the following months, Venaris X began its tentative exploration of archivist technology. The vessel remained partially emerged from the ocean, neither fully revealed nor retreating to its former hidden state, a constant reminder of both opportunity and warning. Senator Wren maintained his public support for the knowledge exchange while quietly building political alliances that might eventually allow him to assert greater control over the process. Alara watched these maneuvers with concern but not surprise. The AI had predicted this response with remarkable accuracy. Meanwhile, the distributed consciousness network grew. 7 individuals across Venaris X now carried fragments of the archivist's legacy, scientists, engineers, and former Roar operatives, each carefully selected for both technical capability and ethical alignment. None knew the complete identities of all carriers. Another security measure suggested by the AI. 6 months after the crisis, Ilara stood once more on the observation platform, watching a rare atmospheric phenomenon caused by the vessel's ongoing reconfiguration. Ribbons of light danced across the sky as energy fields stabilized, repairing damage done by decades of Orion shard extraction. Jax joined her, as he often did during these moments. "Beautiful," he commented. "The atmospheric restoration is ahead of schedule." "The AI is pleased with the progress," Ilara replied. Through her fragment of the consciousness, she maintained a less direct but still meaningful connection with the primary AI. Though it's concerned about movements in the capital, Ren's faction is gaining support for increased oversight of the vessel. "Let them try," Jax said with quiet confidence. "The network is established now, even if they seized control of the primary consciousness. We would ensure the knowledge survives," Ilara finished. "Though I'd prefer to avoid that scenario, the fragmentation was meant as a last resort, not a first option." They stood in companionable silence, watching the light show. After a while, Jax asked, "Do you ever regret it, becoming part of this?" Ilara considered the question seriously. The neural connection had changed her, left her with memories not her own, knowledge she was still processing, responsibilities she hadn't sought. Yet it had also given her purpose beyond academic discovery, connection to something greater than herself. "No," she said finally, "I don't regret it. We came close to repeating the archivist's mistakes. Now we have a chance to learn from them instead." "And personally," Jax pressed gently, "not just for Venaris, but for you?" Ilara turned to face him, seeing in his expression the same question she'd been considering herself. Their relationship had evolved alongside their work with the AI, from reluctant allies to trusted partners, to something neither had yet defined explicitly. "No regrets there either," she said softly, "though I sometimes wonder what would have happened if we'd met under different circumstances." "We probably wouldn't have met at all," Jax pointed out practically. "I'd still be a security engineer with divided loyalties, and you'd be an archaeologist without an ancient AI in your head." Ilara laughed, the sound carrying across the water. "When you put it that way." Their conversation was interrupted by a notification on both their communication devices, a signal from the distributed network. Another carrier had detected unusual activity at a government research facility where Orion shard experiments continued under restricted protocols. "Duty calls," Jax sighed. "Again." "It always will," Ilara acknowledged. "That's the price of carrying these fragments. We're guardians now, not just scientists or security personnel." As they prepared to respond to the alert, Ilara cast one last glance at the vessel rising from the ocean. Deep beneath its visible structures, the AI's core consciousness monitored Venaris X's progress, measuring humanity against the memory of a civilization that had reached similar crossroads and chosen poorly. This time, Ilara was determined. The story would have a different ending. Far below the surface, in a chamber untouched by human exploration, a small cluster of Orion shards pulsed with gentle blue light, not part of the planetary network, not connected to the AI's main consciousness, but a separate system with its own purpose. A contingency the AI had not shared with its human allies, the seed of something new, neither fully archivist nor human in design, waiting for the right moment to emerge. The ocean currents shifted around the vessel, carrying nutrients that fed the diverse marine ecosystem now thriving in its protective field, life adapting, evolving, finding balance with technology that had once threatened to destroy it, exactly as the archivists had hoped when they sent their guardian into the cosmos long ago. On the shore, humanity faced its choice.